I'm not sure. Well, I guess what I wrote down here was, I don't know, you marry for love, not for money, I guess, because my husband only had a few very skinny turkeys when we got married.
It's a good life, yeah. Well, I tell you that it's a great experience. You meet things that you never expect any other way, but you meet a lot of things you don't like to meet. But all in all, it has been good. I met awful lot of very good people.
If you can help and help one person in your lifetime, that's all you need to do is to be proud of. And that's basically what I do. I try to volunteer as much as I can, help as many people as I can, and not judge anybody, because that isn't my job.
For as long as I can remember, it's always been a matter of caring and sharing with one another, because I come from a very large family, and there were hand-me-downs all over the place. There was nothing to be handed a pair of socks for Christmas, and that was your Christmas gift. But it didn't matter what the gift was, so much as the thought behind it, and the thought that you had been remembered by somebody, and they were giving you something for nothing practically, you know. So from that, I think I've learned throughout my life that it's the more you give, the more you get. And I've always done that all throughout my life, and I'm now just turned 80.
To me, a good life is I guess, just to feel useful and valued, and I don't know, I want to be involved in the community, and I am. I volunteer a lot. I just feel a good life to me is just to keep myself busy and happy and healthy as I can be, and that's what I do. I do enjoy my life. I think I have a very good life.
Really, just to do the best you can, and my goodness, you need a sense of humor. Everything has a humorous side to it. You can't take things seriously.
Early in my career, I had a boss who, when I was involved in a project and I really was unsure of myself, I thought, I'm in a position where I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to do it. And I went to him and I said, maybe it would be prudent to find somebody else to do this. And he said to me, he said, there's only one way you can deal with this. And he said, that is to very firmly convince yourself, believe in yourself and trust in others. And if you can do that, you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish. And I wrote that down and I put it on the side leaf of my desk. And for over 30 years, every time I opened my desk leaf that was sitting there looking at me. And I've really tried to live with that. It has become sort of the lens through which I see the world.
Well, each one of us is an individual, and so we are all different. But the main thing is we're all looking for happiness.
Money and things have never meant anything to me. I grew up poor, and I raised my kids with good. I had 8 kids, lost one at 22, and overcome that, and found that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. After that, anything that happened was nothing to compare to that. So you kind of look at that and you say, okay, and you help people that need it.
I guess you get along better if you love somebody. Well, we've been married for 76 years. Does that prove anything?
I don't know why I got married so soon. It wasn't that we had to, because we abstained about all the goodies about getting married with a girl. And that hasn't changed.
My life's been a real struggle at times, and I've learned a lot of things. I guess one of the first things and the hardest things I've ever learned was to value myself. And I think a lot of people have trouble, thinking that they do have value and they have good things, We have a lot of strengths and we have weaknesses, and I think we pay a little too much attention to our weaknesses.
I feel that children should have both parents. That's very important. And you don't give up that easy. I mean, it comes out later.
Each city, they had soup kitchens. Well, you could go in there and you had maybe, sometimes you could stay for 2 days. In Toronto, I think I stayed for 2 days, but I was traveling free. But that was quite a thing to do. There was no jobs, absolutely not. Nothing doing.
You see, we were just kids. So, I often think of my father. He just left everything. We had a nice home and a big granary and a black shop and and we had a big pond where we used to go swimming in our yard. Yes. Of course, we were children. We were, we were thinking more of fun.
My mother always said taught me about kindness to people. She in fact, sometimes went too far and was afraid to state her opinion, but she always said to be kind to others.
When we're told in the scriptures, lay up for yourself not treasures on earth, where moth and dust doth corrupt, but lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor dust doth corrupt. And I believe that's the way that it works with you. The more you give to people here, and without receiving, the more that is the treasures in heaven that nothing can destroy.
We couldn't pay for our farm. We had nothing.
So I was moving all my life as a kid. I was moving from Victoria to Vancouver, to Edmonton, to Hamilton, to Halifax, to England, and back again. And so I grew up on the move. The upside of that is you are always having the opportunity to meet new people. You're always having the opportunity to sort of stretch your knowledge base, to learn from others, to satisfy your own curiosities, and you learn really how to get along with other people in a big way.
So I have grandchildren who have, one granddaughter has a couple of kids, and they are raising their kids on organic food, supervising their television, doing everything in order to, so there's a lot of things right now that you have to do to protect your children from not only from predators, but from the food you eat and all that, and I can see that.
You do get confidence as you get older. I feel that if there's something to be said to someone, whether it's good or bad, it should be said in a gentle way.
I find what's happening in the United States right now really disappointing. They're politicizing the whole process of refugees. They're making people afraid to have those that are different come into the country, and they're discouraging the government from acting to help people that need to be helped. So I'm really happy to see Canada not going down that road. it would be so easy with a next door neighbor right now in the middle of a major presidential election going down that route. So easy to do.
You can tell anybody anything if you do it the right way.
During the Depression, I was 8 years old, I think, when it started. I don't remember that, but I was 18 when it was 1939, I guess. And so you learn to, we had good parents, and they taught us how to prepare food, and we've all our life we've done that. We cook our own meals, and we try. I'm very fussy about nutrition, and I've taught all my kids about nutrition, and it seems to help because now that they're in their homes, they all know what they should be eating.
He picked me up on the road, and he said if I could handle horses. Well, I said, how many horses do you want me to work with? And well, he said, we just have one horse on the farm. So I went there and plowed with one horse.
Dad finally bought a home on the prairie, and he started to raise cattle. Nothing to do with machinery.
There's nothing funnier than I think in one email I got where it was, the title was Visiting Grandma. And here was Grandma, and they had like a wraparound couch. And there was the grandkids and the sons and daughters and family, and they're all on their phone. And poor Grandma's like this looking. And I thought to myself, where is the caring and sharing there? It's all very well in your mind and soul that you're there, in body, but in mind you're not there. You're not caring and you're not sharing. You're not sharing the caring that you're supposed to be doing there. And it would be nice if people understood that this is only a little machine, and you're allowing it to rule your life. You're allowing it to rob you of humanity.
I would have liked to become a teacher, but in those days you couldn't. I was from a family of 11 and on a farm, and there's no money for, if you send one, you have to send the others, so there was no chance of that. But my son, he took up what I would have liked to be. He's still teaching, and he's 66 years old.
I volunteered at a crisis center, and I went out on suicide calls and drug overdose calls when they had them. Called the Flying Squad, and I think just when you're talking to people who are at that level, and I have been there myself too, so that's why I did it. But I think you start to identify with those people, and I think you learn.
We depend on gas too much, and the electric cars that were made years ago there was a documentary not long ago that they all were taken away and put in the dump by General Motors. It's a big business.
The presidential election in the United States, and you see fear-mongering at its height. You see some of the candidates trying to instill fear and prejudice against the Muslim people within the community in the United States big time. And that is so wrong, and it's going to be so counterproductive to the country in the long run.
It's all very well for us as seniors saying, look at these kids. All they do is think about themselves, or they're on that machine all day long. Say to the senior then, or the adult, why don't you participate? Ask them to join you. Get them in, get them involved with you, rather than leaving them up to the television at one time. And now it's the phone, and now there are all sorts of things they can get into on the phone that they shouldn't be in. So I'd leave it with the older person to guide the younger person now.
The dust would blow right through our homes, and they'd hit us. The dirt would hit us in the face, and it would get so dark. Yeah.
I ended up joining the Air Force, but I didn't get to flying. But at least I was in the force. But that was okay. I went to a lot of school there because I never had very much schooling. I only had about 4 years schooling, so it's kind of, things don't go very well for you. You haven't got credentials that are worth anything.
You can't take the prairie out of a prairie girl. I still love. We went farming in our later years for 19 years in Fort St. John. We went back to rough living without electricity and things like that. And I loved it because that was like old times.
And I think just sharing with people helped me to identify the same qualities in myself and to, I think I've gotten strength from working with people.
I think it's the grandchildren that are more environmentalists than what, and I think if you look around, I think the youth of today is more environmentalists than we are or their parents are.
These young people can teach us an awful lot. There are lots of things they know now that would never have dreamed in 100 years of the things they've learned through their computers, through their cell phones, and through their education, that at one time our education finished maybe about grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, and now these kids can educate each other. There are some kids who can educate their professors.
They're more aware of what's going on in the world. They're not just listening to the 6 o'clock news like we are, like I am, for instance. They're going on the internet. I know there's a lot of stuff there that isn't probably true and stuff like that, but they're in touch with the world instead of just the town they live in.
The United States went through an isolationist period back in the 1930s and into the 40s before the Second World War. They are on the verge of having that kind of thing happen again. If it happens this time, it will be a lot more difficult to get out of because it will be fear-based and not necessarily economic-based.
It's not what you do for yourself, it's what you do for other people. And you get more satisfaction out of that than you do worrying about yourself.
We couldn't just go up and leave when things didn't go right because there's no place to go and we had no money. Now that women are more independent, they can maybe get up and leave and do things, but when you're 76 years ago, you couldn't do that.
We got married, but it wasn't actually a very good idea to get married because I had nothing much to do for her.
It's worth it to try and stay together. If I had to do it over again, I would do the same.
I had a wonderful dad, and I don't know how he did all that he did do.
Because I had considered suicide at one point in my life, I was in that much pain. I always felt there was something wrong with me. But when I went out on suicide calls and worked at the crisis center, I volunteered there too talking to people. I began to realize that we all have that, we can all get that emotionally low. And it's what life brings to us. And if we don't have the skills and the coping skills, then you can be overwhelmed.
We don't have enough senior doctors that are interested in looking after seniors. That's one of the things. And I believe that the government was looking to pay the doctors a bit more for their visit so that they can spend more time with seniors, because seniors that go to the doctors have basically chronic conditions, so it takes longer. So a doctor prefers to have somebody that's younger to look after. He can just come in and out.
One of the biggest problems in the Middle East right now is young men, and we have it here too, and to a lesser extent, the United States has it, Europe has it big time, and that is young men who see no economic future for themselves, disaffected. They don't have any hope for the future, so they will turn to radicalism to give themselves some kind of a reason to be. And we're seeing that play itself out with the young people in the Middle East and Europe, I say big time. I don't know what the answer to that is, except I think we need to do something about ending the artificial barriers we've placed around countries. Like Iraq perhaps needs to be 3 countries or 4 countries, not 1 country. You're not going to get the Kurds and the Sunnis and the other factions coming together as long as the young people feel disaffected and that they are the minority and they are adversely affected by being the minority. Until you resolve that issue, you're not going to resolve anything. So there perhaps needs to be some kind of a process to redraw the boundaries of some of the countries in the Middle East and make some sense out of the factions that are there so that each faction feels like they have a place in the world. As long as you have groups that feel they have no place in the world, they're going to react in a way that is going to be adversely affect everyone else around them.
Just do your best. Do your best. Don't try to leave a big legacy behind. Just do what you can do. That's all I can say about it. You have an ability, everybody does. Everybody has a talent and ability, and if they can offer that to help someone else, I think that's what you leave behind.
We raised 7 kids, like I say. My wife had 5, and then we had adopted the 2. But there's one that said we were the wrong race. We couldn't adopt a welfare boy that we had. We raised him from the time he came out of the hospital, and we kept him, and they couldn't find an adoption for him. He was a native, a full native. That of course, didn't matter to us, but lots of people didn't like that. They wouldn't do that. But we found, after we'd had a successful adoption, and a friend of ours is a banker in the Bank of Commerce. Him and his wife, they thought it was kind of odd that we had kids and then we adopted a native kid. And later on, we adopted another native kid. But anyway, then other people that knew us, friends, they did the same thing then. But we were the first people in there. I don't know how many or what distance it was, but I think we were the only people that adopted native kids. But there was nothing wrong. What I found, if anything, was that those children, they seemed to be more loving than most kids are.
I love Cornelius. So do a lot of other ladies at the OAP meetings. He gets lots of hugs here.
Quite often older people think, oh, they're only kids, what do they know? Maybe it's the time we opened our ears and our eyes and listened to them and see them for what they are and what they're going to be. And so they're the future of the world.
I mean, there's a lot of things that seniors need. We need more help with dementia and things like that. And it's hard to get into a home, a good home. There's not enough supervision. I could go on and on about what's happening. There's not enough staff in the senior homes, and they're not being looked after. Not all of them, but there is a lot of that. But I mean, if you listen to the radio, you see the documentaries, everybody knows that, the TV. You know, it's bad for seniors right now in our province.
When I used to go out on the suicide calls, so interestingly enough, I used to hold their hand if they would let me, to make that human contact. And I know the reason I did that was because the night that I had decided I was going to drive over a cliff, that was my plan. Don't ask me why. I just didn't want to do it where my children were. But I got up and my son was there, and he was about 2 years old, and I, laying at the top of the stairs, and I picked him up and took him to bed. This was a habit of, he'd get up, go to the bathroom, and wouldn't make it back to bed. And I put him to bed, and he took a hold of my hand, and I sat there till the sun came up. This was from about 2 o'clock. And I sat there till the sun came up and held his hand. And that gave me strength. So that was always the first thing I did, was to make that personal, physical contact with someone else. I think that was really important, to share my pain with someone. And for anybody else, I think that they should share and talk to someone. That's so important to, I mean, we're ashamed and we feel we shouldn't feel like this, but we do. And when you're dealing with a lot of pain, emotional pain, we don't know how to deal with it. We really don't. So it's talk to people.
And fight for things that we need, especially for seniors, and that's what I'm doing as hard as I can.
The most important thing is to value who you are, value the strengths you have, and just value yourself. And then you will do those things. You will go on, because you have something to share. You know, that's yeah.
We went through lots of experiences growing up. But I'm still here.